Hello, everyone. I just want to remind you that Stories After Dark will begin in 5 minutes. At this time, if you have any stories you want me to narrate, please feel free to email them at the pinned comment in the chat. Thank you. Oh my god. Just how long? Oh my god. Just how long was I muted for? Oh my god. I am so embarrassed. I am so sorry. I've been reading a story for the longest time, and I did not realize I was muted. So I guess we got to go through the intro again. Hello, everyone. Evil Outcast here, welcoming you to another episode of Story. Stories After Dark live the show where I narrate your favorite creepypastas and such. Da 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 da. Oh my god. Well, I did make it a couple of announcements. First was I'm finally back in the process of editing a story, and it should be out within the week. and I'm streaming on Twitch now, here and there, so be on the lookout for that. I wish somebody would have told me that there was no noise coming out. Shit. Well, let's go back in the chat and see who's all here. There's Infinite Psychosis and Cleveland Thought from Bone, aka Sociopathic. I am so sorry. Oh my god. Having to go live in front of one of my friends. Oh my god. As the News Titans, hey, go boy. Duchess Dark, she was here, but I'm guessing she's gone. Hero Excuse stopped by. Shit. Subject Illuminate. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Oh man, I think I just pulled a full-on Forrest Gump right there. I didn't even realize it was muted at that. I'm so sorry. Alright. Yeah, I was explaining the rules. This is a no bullshit channel, which means no drama, no politics, no hate whatsoever. And if any of my mods sees any haters in the chat or any drama, please feel free to justify that, please. In other words, you cause drama, you get the ban hammer. I thought I was still on break too, but I didn't even realize I didn't even realize that I was muted until then. So, damn it. I need to really get my priorities straight. But we're going to go on to our first story again. And I'm not going to use the same for each and every one of my streams, but I would like to quote a friend. Let's begin. Our first story is from a writer named Carte Blanche. Can't pronounce that name to save my life. So let's sit back, relax, and let's all gather by the Storyteller's Shrine, and we will hear our spooks in the Nightmare Ronin Shrine Castle. This first story is called Lakeside Demon. And to look professional, I will put down my pop filter. Jason loved rebelling against what was expected of him. It gave him the most exhilarating of feelings to cross authority and win. He wanted to take it to a new level, however, and the only way he could do that was to go against the town's biggest rule. Don't visit the lakeside at night. Jason didn't know. Jason didn't know why he wasn't supposed to go to the lakeside. He imagined it was some ridiculous superstition that wasn't backed by any legitimate reason. It wasn't talked about, and they hadn't tried to fix the problem that prevented them from going down there. Jason decided that tonight he would go down there and find out what all of the noise was about. Going back to his house, he went straight up to his room. His parents were ignorant, and he didn't care much for them. He did a long time ago, but the two parties had fallen out. His entrance into the house, without a greeting from either parent, was evidence enough. Jason had gotten over caring about this, however. They were holding him down anyway. He wouldn't be controlled by authority. When his parents eventually had gone to sleep, the time was 9 for him to leave. He put on a black jacket and dark pants, so that he would be as inconspicuous as possible. With him, he brought a flashlight and a knife, just in case there was something out there that was worth worrying about. Sneaking outside as quietly as possible, he took the route through the woods that led to the lakeside. There was a fog, but it wasn't thick enough to be a deterrent. After 10 minutes of walking, Jason was at the lakeside. He paused for a moment and reveled in the glory of him. He reveled in the glory of him. Once again outsmarting those who called themselves his superiors. At this moment in time, he wasn't their superior and could not be beaten. This was the best it would get. But he wanted to enjoy it for as long as he could. Feeling immortal, he went closer to the lake and looked into the water. He couldn't see much with it being night, so he took his flashlight out and lit the surface of the water. It was murky and not much to look at, but he kept the light on anyway. He didn't want to miss anything of possible interest. Right before he was about to leave, he flashed the surface of the water again and saw a black straw hat floating towards him. He thought this was strange, considering the water appeared still to him, but the murkiness of it might be holding a slight current. He waited for the hat to bump onto the shoreline and picked it up. The bottom was a little muddy and wet, but that was to be expected. He inspected it closer with his flashlight and saw that there was a couple of finger-sized holes in it. Since it was straw, he paid no attention to it. He put the hat on and turned around to walk away. As he was starting to head back, a sudden splash from behind him made him turn around. He thought he had seen a black shape coming out of the water. But his newly acquired hat fell and blocked his vision, pushing it back into place. He was then face to face with a grotesque creature. Fear petrified him, and he dropped his flashlight. The creature's skin was gray and had pointed teeth randomly dispersed in its mouth. Soaked from the lake water, its long black hairs smelled unbearably awful. Its arms were muscular, and its hands were webbed. Its face, though, was what horrified Jason the most. Its eyes were pure black. its nose sunken into its face, almost completely, and it had gashes going in a diagonal direction from its left temple to its right cheek. Jason thought he might die. He never in his whole existence saw anything like this. He refused to die like this. He reached for his knife. The creature reached faster than he thought possible, grabbing Jason's wrist with a slimy, webbed hand. It smirked. It squeezed hard, breaking Jason's wrist. Jason yelled out in agony as tears dripped down his face. The creature's mouth contorted into the most wicked grin he had ever seen. It used its nails to cut a gash across Jason's face, exactly like the creature had. Jason, now in agonizing pain, fell to the ground. You will submit all of yourself. You will know nothing but obedience. You and then your people, it hissed. More of the same creatures started to come out of the water, all wearing those cursed black straw hats. They surrounded him, hovering in emanating malice. Panic rushed through his mind as he realized that the last thing he would do in his life was to submit to those creatures. He was powerless. Everyone would be powerless. The feeling of failure was the last thing he knew before they were upon him. Whew. And that was Lakeside Demon. It was kind of short, but it was also creepy at the same time. What'd you guys think? See, some of you are. I hope some of you are still in the chat. No, Sushi, I wasn't on a break. He's probably gone by now. But no, I wasn't on break. I wasn't paying attention to my settings, so first goof in a while. But like I said, I haven't streamed in a long time, so my fault. Smoke break? What kind of smoke break? And Subject Limited says, not much, just chilling here to hear some spooks after work. No worries, dude. It happens to everyone. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Like I said. Hold on, I gotta send a message. Sorry, it's just that something came to my attention. Oh, sharing the stream email. I missed a lot of the story. Well, maybe the replay will help you out, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be justified. But thank you for sharing the stream. Awesome so far. Well, thank you, Socio. Thank you, Socio. I know you're here. I know you're here listening, but if you, but I know also know that you probably have to be in work tomorrow. Maybe I don't know. I mean, if you have to go, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll continue on. For sure, yeah. Alright, let's get on to our next story. Oh, oh, I can tell somebody's gonna be. You don't have to go. Well, all right, but I'm just saying if you do have to go, I don't mind at all. Just let me know when you bounce out. All right. Well, let's get on to the next story. This next story, I'm pretty sure some of you've heard on my channel a while back. This is a story by I did by a friend of mine called. You all know him as Timothy Durand, or he was known as Rainier Lewington back in the day. And this is gonna be it's gonna be a doozy because I haven't narrated this story in a long time. This next story is called "Death Doesn't Pay." I'm not the best person to take advice from, but this much is true. Death doesn't pay. Some of you may consider a statement like this from a professional hitman to be odd. As killing people is my livelihood, but it's true. Death has more cost than one would expect it would. People pay me to provide the death of someone else out of hatred, fear, sense of danger, or a feeling of spite. Others will pay me in order to gain a sense of security or relief. The true monster that I cater to pay for someone to be killed out of pleasure or pride. Death always comes at a price to someone, but there is a hidden price when I hear a baby crying. There is a hidden price when there is a hidden price when dealing in the business of death. Just because one does not pay to die does not mean that there are not any cost in experiencing our final dance alongside the Grim Reaper. In a way, I suppose you could call me a real life Reaper. What I say now about there being a cost involved with death is true. Normally, there are funeral expenses, death taxes, and expenses involved in traveling to watch someone being buried or witness their ashes spread over an insignificant plot of land or body of water. There are also emotional and physical costs in terms of the trauma and sorrow that people experience when their loved ones pass. We live such short lives, full of suffering, and leave this world with a sour taste in the mouths of those closest to us. Life specifically, life, specifically human life, is a finite but valuable resource that some value above all else, and others would pay high dollar to extinguish. Those who have lost all hope in escaping a horrible situation or have a deeply entrenched hatred for someone often seek death. Shit. Pause. However, some believe that death doesn't exist, and that is merely a phase towards the end of a chapter we experience here on Earth and continues on in another world. That claim has been thrown around as long as any of us here on this planet have been alive. But to someone like me, I have never seen a continuation of anything once someone has passed. The eyes of those whose lives have been taken by my hand are like are like opaque glass marbles. Any light that would have shone through shone through them has long left them. The life that once lived within them is gone. Its light extinguished. For the victims of my profession, there is little hope for escape and less hope of survival. My efficiency in my line of work is essential in ensuring not only my livelihood, but my very existence. Without my continuous acts of violence, what other existence would I have? When you hold a dying person in your arms for their final moments on this godforsaken earth world, you almost always see a glimpse of pure emotion, fear of dread. Almost all of my targets experience this. Yeah, almost all of my targets experience this form of emotion when I take the life that they once held so dearly from them. They tend to lay shocked in fear, while others lay stricken with dread, so severe that it is difficult for even the most skilled mortician to contort their faces into appearing peacefully. I indeed visited the funerals of my targets in secret. I am one who quite enjoys seeking the fruit of their hard labor. Although I must admit to you that it is a bit of a craving for me. Killing, at least in my case, is almost like a drug, one that I often cannot get enough of. I rarely have any emotions when I kill someone. Only a dull hunger lingers within me, waiting to be satisfied. This was the case until my last target. She was a prominent figure in the East Asian market, being the head of a high profile transportation company in Singapore, and most requests to trade shipments through there would go to her company. She was one of the leaders in her. Really? So sorry about that. I thought somebody was coming out of the room. Anyways, I'm going to start here. She was one of the leaders in her field. Unfortunately for her, one of her associates hired me to dispose of her discreetly. I would have otherwise declined to take on such a high profile job, but the payment being offered was simply too good to resist. Jealousy can make someone do terrible things. But in the world of white collar business, enemies are disposed of discreetly and with little evidence pointing as to who had done the job. When I am being paid this much, I aim to please. The night that was scheduled by my employer was where there would be no interference by anyone and no one to witness my work. She had to travel to the States, where she was supposed to be greeting and working with new trade partners in person. But that would never happen. I arrived in her hotel room, disguised as a member of the hotel's housekeeping staff. She greeted me at the door, adorned in a red silken nightgown. Her hair was long and jet black, the ends of it flowing from the tip of her head down to below her waist. She had a gorgeous shade of blue that extended deep within her eyes, a color that is very rare for where she was from. It was most likely a product of one of her parents having been a foreigner in her country. Her body was curved with the fabric and created angles and proportions that would rival the proportions of idolized Greek gods. I felt a sense of shame and guilt for having to kill such a beautiful woman, but I refused to allow beauty to distract me from my work. As thorough as I was of my job, she was just as thorough of ensuring her own safety. She did a search of my body upon entry, giving me little time to react or prepare myself. She may have been a beauty, but she did not achieve her status with pure beauty alone. The woman was very smart. It would not be one to have her life taken so easily. I did my best to play off her actions, and started with a bit of small talk to ease her out of her inspection. Is there more of me you would like to see, miss? I received a half smile from her and followed her into her room. Proceed in. I had already made several backup plans in the event that my prepared course of action went astray. All the food and drinks on the cart were poisoned. Even the champagne bottle I had in the ice bucket that was sealed had been laced with poison. I resealed it carefully to ensure that she would not detect any signs of tampering. I provided her the typical request for the luxurious food and drinks in my cart. Is there anything on my cart that you would like? Fuck. Is there anything on my cart you would like? She was skeptical at first, but looked over the entire cart, but eventually responded with, Yes, I am not quite hungry yet, but I would like to have your bottle of champagne. So far, so good. I provided a typical response. Would you like for me to place this bottle on your tab, miss? No, I would prefer to pay in cash, and that I opened the bottle myself. This seemed rather odd to me at first, but made sense once I reconsidered how thorough she had been with me upon entry. As you wish, miss. I began to take the bottle out of the bucket, but stopped as she ripped the bottle from my hand. Took the glass I was about to hand her off the cart and reached for the bottle opener to open the bottle of champagne. As abnormal as her actions were, she took time she took her time once she had opened the bottle and indicated for me to have a seat in a chair across from the one she had been sitting in. I was a bit relieved to know that I would be able to witness her die firsthand, like I usually do. I always enjoy watching and making sure my work reaches its completion. Please stay. I would love to have someone to talk to and share this drink. I grew a bit nervous, as I didn't want to drink from the same bottle my target was about to. So I attempted to convince her of my low alcohol tolerance. Oh no, I'm afraid I don't drink, miss, but I don't mind having a conversation if that's what you truly in what you are truly interested in. She didn't seem convinced. Oh, is that so? Are you a light drinker, Mr. I provided her a fake name. Jarrett, miss. And yes, I'm afraid so. Oh, well, that should not stop you from having a conversation with me. I realize that our professions are different and normally would not permit such socialization, but that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy in conversation. I agreed with her and provided her an as you wish before I took a seat across from her. We made small talk about our upbringings and childhood. I did my best to create a convincing story and would divert back to her whenever possible. She told me the story on how she came to be in the position as one of the highest business executives for the company she was employed under. However, she began to grow sad. She began to grow sad after talking about her life, how her life had changed, and about the friends and coworkers she missed spending time with in the past. As the conversation passed, she continued to take sip after sip of the toxic wine. She was upset about having not been able to live the dreams that she had when she was a child. Her father was the CEO of the company and pushed her into taking a job at the company and hounded her into pursuing promotion after promotion. She was treated harshly because of her being the youngest child out of the three, and her older siblings both having been born brothers. With the pressure of achieving success in what was a male-dominated household, she had to prove to her father that she could be just as successful as a man. She always spoke of how he felt disgraced for having a daughter being born into his family and how she ruined the chance of him achieving a perfect line of heirs. He forced to start at the bottom, handling data transactions inside of a tiny cubicle while her brothers were given executive positions right after they graduated from high school. Part of me wanted to kill that son of a bitch myself, but I had to remind myself not to bear any sympathy while listening to her story. She wanted to take her father proud. She wanted to make her father proud and prove to her family that family honor was everything. She had never been given the opportunity to go and fulfill her dreams because she was born a girl. When she finally finished her story, so did her sips of the champagne. As she began to refill her glass, she tried to ask me what brought me to Singapore before she began to cough violently and fell out of her chair, hitting the cart as she fell. She began to cough up blood and stained the white cloth covering the food cart. She lunged at me, desperately trying to reach for my neck, but fell short and only managed to grab at the end of my shirt. She spoke meekly, tears of pain and betrayal growing behind those beautiful eyes. "Who are you? Who wanted to do this to me?" I provided her the name as a parting gift, since she would never survive this ordeal. She turned and spat on the floor. "My brother sent you. Of course he did. He was afraid that father might actually want me to be his successor after all of these years. And that terrified my brother. He deserves to die." And with that, she fell to the floor, her eyes slowly closing shut. Normally, I would have felt nothing but the hunger, but when I looked at her face, I saw a smile cross it. Her whispered softly, "Thank you." And with that, she was gone. A wave of disgust swept over me. It wasn't the first time I killed someone who was innocent. But she was different. She accepted her death. This was something I had never seen before with my targets. A sense of dread came over me. The same kind of dread I see in the eyes of my targets. I quickly made my way out of the hotel and entered into the alleyway. I stripped down out of the attire I had been wearing in the hotel and jumped into my car. I didn't look back. I couldn't bear to look at that hotel. After that night, the feeling of dread and sickness only grew. My hope is that it would eventually end, but it only grew worse. I never drank from the same glass, but it almost felt like I had been poisoned too. She filled my nightmares for weeks. I couldn't find sleep and had to cancel 3 jobs. I was utterly incapacitated. I couldn't think about anything except that final smile she gave me that night. That night I killed her. I slowly began to lose my mind. I wrote the conversation we had that night in journals, on random envelopes, and eventually began to write it on the walls. I did everything I could to try and get the memory of her out of my head. But it was no use. I found myself destroying things, hurting myself, and destroying everything I used to care about. I broke anything that showed my reflection in it. I could no longer bear to look at myself. I devoted into cutting and beating myself when the sickness would overcome me to make it go away. I couldn't keep living like this. After weeks of this torture and having received no new jobs, I received another one and was prepared to decline it, like the others, but stopped myself from pressing that decline button when I saw the name. It was the name of her brother, the same brother who paid me millions to kill his only sister. I knew what I had to do and made the preparations. I tracked down her brother, knocked him out, taped his mouth, covered his head, and brought him to an abandoned warehouse to set up everything. And now here we are. I made sure to set up everything to ensure neither of us would make it out of this alive. I cannot stand to live any longer. This poison, this pain, it all must end. These two executioner blades above me are ready to fall upon both mine and his head once I take my seat and press the remote attached to it. This is the only way I can ensure that my deeds do not go unpunished. I know now. I know that life has a cost more than money. Life costs those who take it, those like me. It slowly eats away at us until it turns us into monsters. I thought there was nothing after life, but I could see it in her eyes before she was gone. She was finally happy. She was happy because of me, because I killed her. I cannot stand to live with myself. I leave this recording to those who may find it. You may learn from your mistakes before it's too late and end up a monster like me, desperately hoping for it to all end. And to those who may find this recording, I only have 3 words for you before I kill this bastard and myself. Death doesn't pay. And that's the story of Death Doesn't Pay by Timothy Duran. Is anybody still alive out there? What'd you guys think? Just give me a few minutes. Let's check the chat real quick. Is everybody still there? Show me some blue hearts if you're still here. Let's see, let's go back to the chat. Did I put everybody to sleep? Okay, I see Cedric is still here. Yeah, I forgot how lengthy Tim's stories can be. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm probably gonna need some water, and the puppers probably need to go outside. So we're gonna take a little. So we're gonna be taking a little break. And I realized that I'm on Discord voice chat. I don't know why. Uh, Hope you're all having a good time. I'm seeing some new. I'm seeing the sub count going, the viewer count going from 3 to 5. If there's anybody in the chat just showed up, please make yourselves known. Don't be shy. I'm hoping you'll be able to enjoy the live stream. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's time for a break. I mean, we've already passed an hour right now. And normally I don't mind passing up an hour, but right now I think I need to get some water because I'm parched. So I'm gonna let the dogs out. I'm gonna get some water, but when we come back, we will get some more scary story time. Please stand by. Oh, it's like I said before. If you have any stories, written stories that you've written yourself, and you want them to be narrated by me, uh, just uh, just send them over to my email at the.evil.outcast84 at gmail.com. And my pinned email will be in the pinned comment in the chat. But like I said, I'm gonna go get some water, and we will be right back. Alright, we are back. Sorry that took me so long. Dogs take a long time to go to the bathroom. Let's take a look at the chat and see who's come back here. Yeah, see, Socio's still here. Subject is still here. Hey, Bree Bunch, what's up? How you doing? I hope you're enjoying this night tonight. Yeah, I think it's been a while since Bree's been here. Welcome back. Yes, welcome back to me too. Oh my, you just got off of work? Ooh. Where are you staying at? It must be pretty late when you, if you're just getting off of work. But, if you're just not getting home, hope you have a... Hope you be careful, okay? So we're gonna get back into it. And it's like I said, if you take a look at the pinned comment in the chat, I am accepting stories from anybody. If you have a written story, please feel free to email me. Oh, it's 12:36 over there. Oh, it's 12:36 over here. Oh my. Oh shit. Well, if by chance you fall asleep, I hope you have a good night. But yeah, I'm in the mood for a classic creepypasta. How about everybody else? $137 over here. Ooh, you're braver than late night oil, socio. Then again, you're living in Eastern time, so so I can understand. Classic creepypasta, yes. Well, I'm gonna read this one. It's one of my favorites, and it's from a author who, and of course, it's gonna be a gaming creepypasta. But some of you may know him as Jed Usable. If some of you do not know him, then you're about to hear this story. The story is called Ben Drowned, or Haunted Majora's Mask, but we get the idea. Post number 1, September 7th, 2010. Okay, I need your help with this. This is not copy pasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and this video game related. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room, starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all of those old games of my youth that I hadn't touched in at least a decade. His N64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And beggars can't be choosers, needless to say. It didn't. And beggars can't be choosers. Needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored with beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend, I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods, about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and two other controllers for $2. Satisfied. I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars. There were no cars there, and only one table was set up with random junk on it. But something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd, if you asked me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing. I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on the edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't in the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must have been blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look at his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. I was wondering how could I politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said he had a few old ones in an old box. He assured me he had been back in a jiffy, and turned to head back into the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather peculiar paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason, it looked almost like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body, with little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was projecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up and the old man was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me an N64 cartridge. It was a standard gray color, except that someone had written Majora on it in black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a coincidence this was and asked him how much he wanted for it. The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free. That it used to belong to a kid who was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was, there was something weird about how the man phrased that, but I didn't really pay any attention to then. I was too caught up in not only finding this game, but getting it for free. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical since this looked like a pretty shady cartridge, and there's no guarantee it would work. But then, the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game, and that and that was all I needed. I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man. Hang on. Sorry. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying, "Goodbye then." At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way into the car ride, all the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine. But then, but though, and there was one save file simply named Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man. Obviously obviously a grandparent, or obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it, and I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all the mask and three-fourths remaining of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3, and by the Stone Tower Temple, and with hardly an hour before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file, and then I made a new file named Link out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally, just like a real-time copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the NPCs would call me Link, and other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming, causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out though, after a while, but it was always after I had beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect of the game's original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway. Hoping that that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now the NPCs wouldn't call me anything. where my name should be in the dialogue. There was just a blank space. My save file was still called Link, though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the lens of truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now, some of you more hardcore Majora's Mask players know about the fourth day glitch. For those who don't, you can Google it, but the gist of it is that right as the clock is about to hit 000000 on the final day, you talk to your astronomer and look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown will disappear, and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch to try to finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter. And the time counter at the bottom disappeared. Hey, Lady Spagario, what's up? Glad you can be here. You're in the middle of a classic creepypasta. Well, you just came in of me reading classic creepypasta. Anyways, continue. However, when I press B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I find myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game. The trippy boxed in area, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me. And the background music, which was regular in the area, but still creepy. Immediately, my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area, but no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me. Looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen, though. But this kept up for another 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach for the reset button when the text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently have a reservation. I instantly recognized the text. You get that message when you get the room key from Anju at the Stockpot Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if that was some sort of trigger to enable me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that someone could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared to the screen. And again, like the first one, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss? Yes or no? I paused for a second, contemplating what I should press and how the game would react. When I realized that I couldn't select no. Taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white with the words "Dawn of a New Day." with the subtext line, 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 line beneath it. Where was I? Where I was ported to fill. Where I was ported to fill me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I had experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of an inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I normally do not get depressed. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was the feeling that I didn't even knew existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clock Tower. I walked out of the Clock Tower as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all of the inhabitants were gone. Usually within the fourth day, usually with the fourth day glitch, you could still find the guards and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time, they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there in the same area as me and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and a hero's bow, but at this point, I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the song of healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so as if you should expect something to pop out of you. But nothing ever did. But nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Now every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of a happy masked salesman in the background. Just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I'm just hearing things, but just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all four zones of Clock Tower, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clock Tower had me walking on air. The entire area felt broken. Hopelessly broken. As the reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been the 50th time. I just remember standing in the middle of South Clock Tower realizing that I had never felt so alone in a video game before. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination of the out of place textures or the atmosphere and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song being butchered and distorted. But I was literally on the verge of tears, and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something that gripped me here. Something had gripped me here in this powerful sense of depression that was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clock Tower, but every time I attempted to zone out, every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black, and I would just zone in to another part of the Clock Tower. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, but I did not want to be here. Every time I played the Song of Time or Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your notes echo far," but nothing happens. By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I didn't know why, but I came with the idea but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy masked salesman smiling at me. Not me, not Link, with me. Me with Skull Kid's scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring into the Link statue playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with that haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into the South Clock Tower. And to my horror, the fucking statue followed me in the only way I could compare this like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Even so often, every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play of the statue appearing behind me. It was like the thing was chasing me, or I don't even want to fucking say it, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics, but not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make weird animations I had never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around and spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I was face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordsmaster's dojo and ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one. But as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again to the happy masked salesman, and Link turned to face my screen, staring upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left on the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo, terrified. Suddenly, the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again as I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again. This time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared in southern clock tower. As I ran aimlessly, in a sheer panic, suddenly a huh? a rated scream. Suddenly, a rated screamed, and the scream faded to black as the dawn of a new day, and 7 lines appeared again. The screen faded in, and I was standing on top of Clock Tower with Skullkid hovering over me again. Silent. I looked up and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skullkid just stared at me, hauntedly, with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. The Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped the bow and fired off a shot at the Skullkid. And it actually hit him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good, hee hee hee," and was picked off the ground, levitated upwards on my back. Then Leek screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skullkid himself didn't have any moves. As the death scream played, his lifeless body still burning, the Skullkid laughed and the scream faded to black, only to have me reappear at the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force and immediately burst into flames, again killing him. This time during the death screen, the faint sound of the reverse song of healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there was no music playing this time. All there was eerie silence. I remembered that in the original encounter with the Skullkid, you were supposed to use the Ocarina to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames and died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time, Link was lying on the ground, dead, in a position I had never seen in the game before. His head tilted towards the camera, with the Skullkid floating above him. I couldn't move, and I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do is just stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with the message, "You met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" Before kicking you out of the title screen. Before kicking you out to the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file. Was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was placed with Your Turn. Your Turn had 3 hearts, no masks, and no items. And I selected Your Turn, and immediately, when I did, I was returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link, dead, and the Skullkid hovering over, with the Skullkid's looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up again, there was one more save file added below your turn, entitled Ben. Ben's save file was right back where it was before, I deleted it. At the Stone Tower Temple, with the moon almost crashing. I turned the game off at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up even for me. I haven't I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I keep hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head and just remembering the sense of dread I felt exploring the clock tower. I drove back to the old man's house today to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way I was going there alone. Only to find fuck. Only to find that there's a for sale sign in the front yard, and when I rang the door, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what happened. Sorry if some of this has grammatical errors or whatnot. I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game, even more so now than I relived it. A second time writing this all down. But I feel like there is still more to it than meets the eye, and that there's something calling to me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. And if I could get a hold of the old man, then I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity. I feel like. But next time I do this, I'm going to be recording my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end. So you see the last few minutes of what I saw, including Skull Kid and the elegy statue. But it's on YouTube here. I'm going to stay in this thread for a little while longer before I fall asleep to answer any questions you guys might have, or hopefully listen to your ideas or theories to help me shed some light into this, and maybe things I should try to do. I think I'm going to play Ben's file tomorrow to see what happens. Maybe I was supposed to do that all along. I don't believe in paranormal shit, but this is a little fucked up, and maybe this Ben guy is just a really good hacker / programmer. I don't want to think about the alternatives if he isn't. That's the end of the copy / past of the that's the end of the copy / paste. I'm hoping that maybe this is some kind of running gag the developers had, and the other people had gotten gag or hack copies of the game. This really scares me. Holy shit. I only need to take a big chug out of water after that. So that was Ben Drowned, post 1. All right, let's take a look at the chat. See what you guys think. Let's take a look at the chat real quick. Let's see. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Bree Bunch says, "Fell asleep listening to this. Woke up from a nightmare. Me flipping a blizzard and the blizzard falling out. Ooh, shit. I'm sorry, Bree." Subject Lumen says, "Gonna lie down, but still listen to Zeet's stories. A bit sleepy, so I may pass out midstream, but hearing the narration is perfect to listen to. So if I don't respond, I am likely knocked down." Oh well, if you fall asleep, if you're asleep, thank you for coming by, dude. I mean, and I hope you have a good rest. Sociopathic says, "Not ignoring you, listening while I'm doing other stuff." Hey, man, if you're you're like the king of multitasking. Way better than me. Yeah, I'm keeping Socio good company. Oh, I feel so flattered. And we have Derek Weber, Scary Stories. What's up? You're definitely new here. Welcome to the stream. I'm glad you can make it here, man. He says, "Dude, I love live readings. Stoked you're doing one." Yeah, this is like the first one I've done in like months, or at least a month. Nah, I'm just gonna say months because I don't remember the last time I streamed. But I'm glad you're here. Thank you for all the support and everything. I'm getting two hell yeses from Derek. Lace Picardia says, "Great work. I'm hanging while a video is rendering." Man, I really need to get back to work on that video. I mean, I know it's a bit late on my end, but still. I'm gonna I'm gonna at least try to get this video out by the end of the week. But if I don't, I'm sorry. There's always next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. But I'm still gonna be streaming for all of you guys because I love each and every one of you. Smiley face. Uh, so that was post one of Ben Drowned. Hmm. I may think about doing this story series someday, but I don't know. It is 1:18 over here on my end, and we've been streaming about an hour and 52 minutes. What say you guys? Do you think we have enough time to read the second post, or move on to a different story? I gotta stretch my legs out. I mean, it's up to you guys. What say you? Read post two. Flip a coin. You flip a coin. What say you? Read post two. Okay. For all you still in the chat, type 1 for read post 2 of Ben Drowned. type 2 for read a different story, or type 3 say, fuck it, let's all go to bed. Ah. You know what? Don't type 3, because I'm probably going to be ending it after this one last story. Yeah, I can see everybody's getting pissed off and be like, man, make up your fucking mind already. Bleh. Bleh. Boo. Coin said 2, read a different story. I guess it's going to be my only vote. Alright, let's find something else. But you know what? I'm going to bookmark this story. So... yeah, stupid bookmarks. Los Lings. Do everything at once. God damn it, lady. You know what? I think we have one. I think we have time to do one more classic creepypasta. And I think this classic is something we all know. A creature of creepy descent. Wait, did I read this one in a previous last thing? I don't remember. Not this one then. I don't want to read the goddamn Pokemon story. Fuck y'all. Oh, what's the blast of the month? Content. Ow. Hang on. Ah, yes. Ah, yes. I think I found the perfect classic right here. Of course, it would have helped me to... Of course, it would have helped me to know the author of this name. But I guess we'll just carry on. Our final story of the night is Tall, Thin, and Faceless. Walls. White walls. White padded walls. Day in, day out. White padded walls. Let me tell you Let me tell you why I see these white padded walls day in and day out. Or I am, or at least according to several doctors, certifiably insane. Hallucinations, paranoia, schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders. The list goes on and on. I was normal. I was a normal working class man living the American dream. I had a wife and two children. My income was high and my debt was low. I had it all. Then things started going wrong. Started to go wrong. They started to go in a direction I couldn't even fathom. My wife and I had always wanted to go to the British Isles, but for the longest time, the money wasn't there. It took several years and two promotions before we could even begin to think realistically. Anyway, after months of careful planning and preparation, we were on a plane flying over the Atlantic Ocean. Just me, just me and her. No kids, no job, nothing but beautiful scenery and relaxation for 24 straight days. Fast forward a week, having taken in many of the big cities, we decided to see some of the similar places out in the Reaper's Horror. What's up, man? I had seen padded wall. I see white padded walls. Yeah, I've been there. Kind of a nice place, but the food sucked. Oh my god. Oh, you're a laugh riot, Reaper. Thank you for coming to my stream, man. Where was I? Oh yeah. Fast forward a week. Having taken in many of the city sites, we decided to see more of the smaller places. Out in the courtside, we packed a small bag. Okay, thank you for coming by, Derek. Hope you have a good night's sleep. We decided to see some of the smaller places out in the countryside. We packed a small bag of essentials, and took a cab into the rural side of England. This is where things started to go wrong. Not the whole world is coming to an end wrong, even though it sure felt like it. Just wrong. We came across an old trailer in a moderately decorated cabin. He said he had been making suits for over 65 years. My interest was piqued. I decided to splurge a little bit and buy one. Nothing beats the craftsmanship. Nothing beats the craftsmanship of a home tailored suit. After paying for it and calling for a cab, a picture on the wall caught my eye. It was old, black and white, mid 50s. It was a very tall and very slim suited man standing on a grassy plain. His face appeared to be smudged. It was old. I didn't think much of it. Even so, something about this picture was unnerving. It gave me an odd vibe. It felt almost menacing. I inquired about the photo, but the old man refused to talk about it. That just added fuel to my mental fire. Days upon days had passed. My wife and I took in every site, every castle, every grassy knoll we possibly could. But alas, eventually we had to go home. Part of us wanted to stay, but we were exhausted. There was no way we could spend any longer there. Our flight back home was vague, as we were both asleep most of the time. The drive back home was hazy. We just wanted to relax. As I pulled into the driveway, something was off. Something didn't feel right. I got the same feeling I had when I saw the picture inside the Taylor's home. It was a feeling of dread and curiosity. I didn't want to come. I didn't want to continue, but my mind forced me to. I stepped out of my car and when I stood onto the concrete, my legs suddenly gave out. I fell to the ground on my right hand. I fell to the ground on my right hand and found myself unable to force myself up. I must be more tired than I thought. My wife helped me. My wife helped me up and supported me up to the bedroom. I was going to be asleep for a very long time, or so I thought. That night, I was plagued by nightmares, by the suited man on the grassy plain. It wasn't really a bad dream as much as it was his presence haunting me in my subconscious. Just standing there, unnaturally tall, unnaturally thin, standing there without a face, without an identity, and no matter how hard I tried, his face never focused. It was as though the picture had come alive in my thoughts, but remained unchanged. This went on until I had been abruptly woken up by the sound of the smashing of the lamp. I raced down 2 flights of stairs leading from the bedroom to the living room. Armed with only a brick we used as a doorstep, I slowly crept to where the only lamp in our house used to be. I knelt down to pick up a piece to examine when I felt a slight blow of wind from behind me, like a person running past. I shot up faster. I shot up faster than a startled cat. I sprung around to see what or who it was. My eyes had still not adjusted to so surrounding me. My eyes had still not had adjusted, so surrounding me was nothing but darkness. My next thought was to listen. Nothing. Not a single thing. Not even the sound of the house settling. Maybe it was a nightmare, or fatigue playing tricks on me. Maybe we had a slight tremor that caused the lamp to inch off of the table regardless. I was tired and I sorely wanted to get some nightmare-free sleep. It didn't happen. Throughout the rest of the night, the slender man was everywhere in my dreams. He was a bit curious, though. He only ever seemed to cautiously hide behind trees. The only original photo was he was only in the original photo was he completely exposed. Even subconsciously, I wished I hadn't moved next to a forest, knowing he could be lurking, watching me, analyzing me. It didn't take long. It didn't take long to force myself awake. 10:46 a.m. I looked at my left. I looked to my right. My wife was calmly sleeping. Lucky her. I dragged myself out of bed and slowly made my way downstairs. I half expected the TV to be blaring with my kids' eyes glued to the screen. But then I realized that they were at their grandma's house. They were due back that day. I was going to miss the quiet. It was alright. I missed my kids even more. I continued downstairs, hoping to get a game of solitaire in on the computer, when something made me feel very weak and hollow. The lamp wasn't broken, but it wasn't brand new. But it wasn't brand new either. Someone took the pieces and shoddily glued them back together. And the glue wasn't glue. It was black and rubbery, like tar. I would have tasted it. I would have tasted it for origin, but that's never a good idea. My wife needed to wake up soon. I was starting to panic. I explained what happened the night before, about the lamp and the nightmares and such. She just rolled her eyes and told me I was on something. Wives. Sometimes I think they do it on purpose. Still feeling uneasy from this morning, I managed to force myself to look out on into the forest behind our house. It was very calm. Nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't completely dark, so it didn't look nearly as ominous as it usually did at night. I was badly lamenting this night, in particular. Suddenly, I saw a light out of the corner of my eye that caused me to nearly jump out of my skin. It was just the kids getting dropped off. I swear I was thinking too much into this. I couldn't keep my nerves steady half the time. Hours passed. We played with the children. We put them to bed. We relaxed on the couch. My wife was asleep on my chest. I was nodding off. I slowly closed my eyes. I wasn't looking. It wasn't long before the quiet was broken, and my wife and I were woken up. The window broke upstairs. In a panic flurry, we ran up the stairs as fast as we could. Our eldest son, scared out of his mind, said it came from his brother's room. Without even thinking, I kicked the door in. Only the nightlight in the far corner brought light into the pitch black room. And there he was, the man in my dreams, the Slender Man, hovering over my son's bed. Having seen him, I acted without even knowing what was going on. Punches were thrown. Long black tendrils whipped all around. The last thing I remember was being held tightly above the ground and thrown against the wall. That's when I blacked out. When I came to, my wife was in tears. I had 3 cracked ribs. My son was gone. The Slender Man had my son, and there was nothing I could do. But I knew he was going to come back, and that was when I would get him. The rest of the day was full of emotion. My wife could hardly stop crying. My other son was in a constant state of shock. I could barely think straight. I did. However, I managed to call the police. I told him my son had been abducted by a man in a long black suit. I kept the details of the tendrils to myself in fear they wouldn't believe me. But that was the least of my worries. I needed to figure out when he would return. The police showed up and took each of our statements. They examined my son's room. They did a quick scout of our forest outside. It seemed not a single piece of evidence was found. They had they had begun to leave when something hanging from a high up branch caught their eye. It was a piece of material, black, pinstriped, much like a much like the suit I bought while I was on vacation. I pointed this out to the police, and they inquired to see my suit. I gladly showed them. I gladly showed them the way. When I opened the closet door, what they found was beyond belief. Wrapped in my now tattered suit was my son, completely drenched in blood. He didn't look conscious. He didn't look conscious, but myself and the police were shocked and disgusted. That's when I blacked out. When I came to, I was in an unfamiliar place. Gray painted walls, small windows on one of them, one exceptionally bland table. Great! I was in an interrogation room. I sat there, alone for a good part of an hour before actual human life entered the room with me. Now my memory is a bit hazy at this point, so I'll try and sum up the conversation as best as possible. The officers had said, "Your son didn't survive. Deepest sympathies to you and your family. You've not been proven guilty, but evidence leads towards it. A further investigation must be held. You will be brought back home, but you will be under constant supervision." And so on, and so on, and so on, and so forth. I was driven home in the back of the police cruiser. Last time I was there was in high school, when vandalism was the cool thing to do. I was welcomed with open arms from my still sobbing wife and my emotionless son. Could have stayed longer. Thankfully, we didn't have to stay longer. The police explained that we were going to stay at a hotel for a few days. We gathered our things. We gathered our things when a picture from our fridge caught my eye. It was a picture of my late son. It was a picture my late son drew. When I saw it, my heart nearly stopped. In the curious crayon drawing, you can imagine was my son standing next to a tall, faceless man in a black suit. I made sure no one was around to see me stuff the picture into my pocket. The hotel was what you would normally expect. Simple wallpaper, 2 twin beds, 1 TV, cheap flowery design on everything else. It would have to do since we were stuck there. We settled in, placing out our stuff and lying down. I, on the other hand, went to the bathroom, the only place I knew I was private. I locked the door and took the picture out of my pocket. I scoured the page for clues, but to no avail. All that was there was the crude drawing and his name scribbled into the bottom center. The thing that unnerved me the most was the fact that the Slender Man had no face, no identity, not a single outstanding feature. It rattled me to the core, but I had enough stress from today. I needed sleep. Badly. The night was rough, and I still managed to. Not a single dream with the Slender Man either. Then a banging came from the door. being half asleep the whole time. It scared the shit out of me. I turned to my right, 6:14 a.m. Heads were going to roll. I dragged myself out of bed and very slowly opened the door. It was the police officer that drove us here. He had a look of panic on his face. He said my son was missing. Nothing clicked. It took me a minute to wake up and grasp the reality again. My son's body was missing, snatched right from the hospital. But this time, I knew where he was. I had to get back to the forest. I had to find the remains of my suit. It was the only way to stop the Slender Man. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I had to ask the police officer if he could drive me back to my house, as I had forgotten something. He pondered for a moment and obliged. This time, I had been allowed to sit in the passenger seat. The ride there was quiet. I tried to get some sleep. He didn't start any conversation, but when we got there, I was careful to make sure no one else saw me. I entered the house through the front door and quickly escaped out the back and headed for the forest. It was still very dark out, so traversing the heavily wooded area was not easy. The only light that came through was that of the moon. So I walked, almost blind, hoping to find some scrape of my suit. It seemed to be impossible until, amidst the darkness, I saw a scrap of paper. The white of it stood out like a sore thumb. I leaned down to pick it up, and when I turned it around, what I saw was completely horrified me. It was another drawing by my son, with both him and the Slender Man. But this one was different. There were 3 other people. A boy the same height as him. An older looking girl, and another boy as big as the girl. Then it dawned on me. It was us. My family. My son. Drew us with the Slender Man. I then saw a beam of light. It was the police officer. I ran up to him and showed him the picture. Explained that my family was nothing he could do. Did I skip a line? I explained that my family was in great danger. All he told me was that there was nothing he could do. He said we should go back to the car and we would go back to the hotel. A million thoughts ran through my head. Should I concede? Should I resist? What I did next is peanuts compared to what was about to unfold, but I didn't know, and looking back. I didn't want to. I gave in to the police officer's request and began to head back to the car. While he had his back towards me, I picked up a fair stick stone and brought it down upon his head. He staggered for a bit and fell to the ground. I took the car keys off of him and ran towards the car. It was quickly dark. It was still dark. I needed to get back to the hotel. I screeched to an immediate halt in the hotel parking lot and ran towards the door where we were staying. I swung I swung open the door to behold the one thing I was trying to prevent. Amidst all the blood that painted the room were three bodies making a circle around the Slender Man. He turned around and looked at me. His hollow, non-existent eyes stared deep into me. Emotion, Emotions I had never felt before. Emotions without names filled my brain and body. It was like he was making me feel everything he ever had. With with an outstretched hand, he said only one thing that would be burned into the back of my mind forever. Help me. Sirens came behind me. Sirens came from behind me. I turned around to see the police cruisers pull into the parking lot and watched them get out, using car doors as shields with their guns aimed at me. I raised my hands above my head. I slowly looked behind myself to see the Slender Man fade into nothing, leaving only a tattered suit in a heap on the floor. He killed my family. My life would never be the same. And yet, something told me that I was never going to see him again. I would never be able I would never be able to exact revenge, even if I figured